You always loved airports. Not just the planes, but the whole theater of movement, the shifting crowds, the flashing departure boards, the faint perfume of duty-free shops colliding with the harsh tang of jet fuel. Just standing there made you feel important, as if you were part of some grand story. As a child, you pressed your face against the glass and watched the flight attendants march by like an elegant fleet. They seemed untouchable, polished, serene, people who belonged to the skies rather than the ground. They weren't chained to traffic, offices, or routine. They were always going somewhere, and you promised yourself you would too. So when that email arrived, "We are pleased to offer you a position," you cried. You told your friends you were finally going to travel. You posted it online with emojis and hashtags, proof that the dream was real. For a moment, you believed you were stepping into a cinematic version of yourself, the one you had always imagined, glamorous, free, powerful. But the dream, like so many dreams, came wrapped in fine print. Training began, and suddenly it wasn't Paris or New York. It was emergency drills, medical procedures, and memorizing FAA codes. You practiced handling heart attacks at 38,000 feet, fighting fires with oxygen canisters the size of your forearm, and repeating safety demonstrations until the words lost all meaning. The instructors didn't care about your wanderlust. They cared about your polish, your precision, your ability to keep calm when the cabin turned into chaos. You were told your smile was as essential as your safety knowledge. You were taught to endure chipped nail polish as if it were a sin, to reapply makeup at 4 a.m. as if the fate of the aircraft depended on eyeliner. Still, you pushed through, because when you put on that uniform for the first time, it felt like a crown. Standing at the cabin door, greeting passengers with a crisp "welcome aboard," you felt you had stepped through the glass into the world you used to gaze at. You weren't a spectator anymore. You were part of it. Walking the aisle, watching the earth shrink beneath you, you thought you had conquered gravity itself. But then came the first delay. The first passenger who spat venom at you for something beyond your control. The first time you sat stiffly in a jump seat for 6 hours, your body screaming while your smile remained intact. The first unwelcome comment from a man whose eyes lingered too long, whose words hovered between joke and threat. Layovers felt like escape valves at first. Berlin mornings, Seoul streetlights, Miami sunsets, all proof you were living the dream. You posted hotel breakfasts and foreign signs, and friends back home commented, "You're so lucky." And you tried to believe them, but in the cracks of your schedule, 3 a.m. alarms, 12-hour duty days, reroutes that erased sleep, you started to sense the cost. The freedom you imagined was caged by scheduling systems, by seniority rules, by the constant command to absorb, de-escalate, accommodate. You thought it was temporary, a year of endurance, then things would get easier. But you didn't realize the job was more than long hours and sore feet. It was a slow negotiation with your identity. Each day in uniform asked, how much of yourself are you willing to give to keep flying? For now, you told yourself it was worth it. You memorized boarding speeches until they slipped from your tongue like a second language. You learned the choreography of beverage carts, the art of nodding without agreeing, the skill of apologizing for things you never caused. You laughed at turbulence, even when the cabin rattled like a blender. You smiled with your teeth, but not with your eyes, because eyes could betray fatigue. Little by little, you were mastering survival in the sky. And yet, underneath it all, something whispered, "This isn't the dream. This is the price of the dream." The rhythm settles in eventually, though it feels less like a rhythm and more like a loop you can't step out of. You wake at hours that feel unnatural, boarding shuttles before dawn, watching cities blur through tinted glass, only to forget them by the next day. Hotel rooms replace your own bed, each one identical, white sheets, humming AC units, curtains that never quite close. You wake up and for a second cannot remember which country you're in. Time stops being measured in days or months. It is measured in duty hours, rotations, the never-ending carousel of flights. Friends still insist you're living the dream. They see the photos, neon signs in Tokyo, cobblestones in Madrid, selfies against Miami sunsets. But behind every snapshot is exhaustion. You know the truth. They see postcards, not the layovers spent in chain hotels by airports, not the dinners made of vending machine snacks because your body is too heavy to leave the room. Your own body begins to betray you. Skin that cracks from dry air, ankles swollen after hours of standing, feet permanently bruised from shoes that look sharp but feel like shackles. Your eating schedule is chaos, sometimes 12 hours without real food, sometimes dinner at sunrise. You carry electrolyte packs, eye drops, caffeine pills, blister pads in your bag like a survival kit. Even your cycle no longer respects the calendar. And still, the uniform must sit perfectly, the smile must be steady, the nails immaculate. Your body is part of the performance. You become fluent in emotional labor. You smile with strangers who treat you like furniture, who shove their frustrations into your chest like luggage. You nod at businessmen who wave you away, only to pull you back for more. You absorb complaints about delays, turbulence, catering, as if you personally commanded the weather or stocked the galley. A woman rolls her eyes and demands a manager, not realizing you are trained to evacuate hundreds in under 90 seconds. And then there is the kind of attention you never wanted, the lingering stares, the casual comments, the men who lean too close to guess your hotel. You learn to brush it off, to keep walking with your key card ready, to bolt your door as if it were instinct. You become hyper-aware in hallways, on shuttles, even in layovers that should feel like freedom. You laugh with your crew about it because laughter is the only safe response, but beneath it, you carry the tension in your bones. Women aren't always kinder. They snap, they sneer, they sigh loudly when you remind them to buckle a seatbelt. You become the lightning rod for everyone's impatience. Yet, in the same breath, you also become nurse, counselor, babysitter, and diplomat. You soothe crying children with napkin puppets, calm passengers mid-panic attack, de-escalate couples arguing over armrests. You learn to read the room like a strategist, who needs silence, who needs extra water, who might become a threat. You miss birthdays, weddings, the irreplaceable markers of home. You watched your best friend say, "I do," through a pixelated video call in a crew lounge. You told yourself it was enough, though it stung like a wound. Your sister's baby was born while you were mid-Atlantic, and your "I love you" was whispered between captains' announcements. Life becomes something you witness from afar, always almost present, never fully there. And yet, amidst the fatigue, there is camaraderie. Other crew members who laugh at the same absurdities, who share inside jokes about turbulence, swollen feet, or passengers who press the call button just to ask for soda. Humor becomes armor. Without it, the heaviness would crush you. Together, you turn misery into punchlines, exhaustion into solidarity. Crew lounges become confessional booths, places where you hug co-workers goodbye, knowing the bond is real, even if the promise to keep in touch rarely survives the schedule. Detachment also grows into a tool. You learn to separate the person from the insult, the job from your soul. Your smile becomes a shield, your uniform an armor. You are professional, polished, controlled, but inside, the weight builds. Each day adds a little more: fatigue, humiliation, loneliness. None of it explodes, it just accumulates like invisible bruises. And even armor, when worn too long, becomes unbearably heavy. The glamour you once imagined has burned away. What remains is the work, grueling, invisible, endless. Yet you keep going because you are good at it, because you have built something here: seniority, rhythm, survival. And because, somewhere in you, the girl who pressed her face to the airport glass is still alive, whispering that this must all be worth it. Years pass, and the job shapes you in ways you never expected. The uniform, once a crown, now feels like a costume. It still fits, but sometimes it hides more than it reveals. You walk the aisles like you always have, smile fixed, words rehearsed, but behind it all, you are quieter, older, and unspeakably tired. People say, "At least you get to travel." But travel has lost its promise. You don't see Paris. You see an airport hotel 6 miles outside the city. You don't savor Rome. You eat at the same 3 chain restaurants because they're close and safe. You've stood in dozens of countries and felt completely alone in all of them. You take photos sometimes, but they sit unposted, lifeless. What was once adventure is now routine, and routine has become a cage with wings. Relationships fracture under the weight of distance. Lovers grow weary of missed calls and broken promises. Family learns not to count on your presence at holidays. Your phone is filled with half-finished texts, apologies, and "sorry I missed this" messages. You give your emotions freely to strangers, comforting, soothing, laughing, but withhold them from the people who matter most. You wanted freedom, but instead you've become tethered to a life that demands constant absence. Your body bears the years like battle scars. Knees that ache after turbulence, hips that throb after 3 legs, feet permanently bruised by heels. You carry painkillers, blister pads, and caffeine tablets as naturally as others carry wallets. Your skin is dry, your sleep fractured, your health sacrificed quietly at the altar of aviation. Every flight chips away at you, not catastrophically, but slowly, invisibly, in ways no one sees. The emotional toll is heavier still. You have been touched without consent, filmed without permission, cornered, ignored, laughed at. You have written reports that vanish into silence. You've learned to deadbolt hotel doors, to keep your room key in your bra, to live in a constant state of alertness. You call it normal because you've had to, but in truth, it has reshaped you. Fear no longer startles. It lingers like background noise. And yet, you keep going. Because seniority means security. Because routine feels safer than starting over. Because the idea of quitting terrifies you more than the exhaustion of staying. What would you do if you stopped? Sit at a desk? Live on the ground? The sky has taken so much from you that you no longer remember what it feels like to stand still. That is the quiet heartbreak of it. You wanted to see the world, and you did, but now that you've seen it, you no longer feel it. You walk through ancient streets with earbuds in, legs heavy, already thinking about your pickup time. You drink coffee in cafes where poets once wrote, but your mind is on the shuttle back to the airport. The dream stretched too far has become a burden, and still there are flashes. Moments at 35,000 feet when the cabin falls silent, when the sun sets in molten gold across the wing, when for just a breath you feel lucky again. But they are not the job. They are the escape from the job. The job is swallowing frustration with a smile. The job is missing milestones. The job is being treated like furniture with a name tag. The job is loneliness dressed as freedom. You gave everything to the sky, your time, your body, your heart. And in return, it gave you a view. Beautiful, fleeting, but never enough. And so you keep walking the aisle, scanning rows, hands ready, smile loaded like armor. You repeat the words you've said 10,000 times before. Hi there, welcome aboard. And silently, you wonder if anyone sees the woman behind the uniform.